Okay, so this second one is on something called the nutrient pathway. What is a nutrient pathway? It's kind of pretty much the cause of most ergonomic related pain, ergonomic related issues, or dysfunctions within the nutrient pathway. It kind of is similar to the space and flow concept, especially the idea of the flow, getting the blood out there to heal, and then the nutrients uh, back and forth kind of thing to heal tissues. Um, Delivery of nutrients to injured tissue, removal of waste from injured tissue. Really depends on the flow part. The arterial pulmonary flow of blood, oxygen, nutrients facilitates healing micro traumas aided with movement. Everybody gets micro traumas within a day as you're typing and doing whatever. And usually you are able to heal that if you're getting good flow or getting good sleep, that sort of stuff. And the flow, as you know, is very much aided with movement. We talked a lot about aerobic exercise is good for a lot of shoulder, upper extremity issues. It's also very good for ergonomics. So if you have a job where you're not moving a lot, you don't have very good flow. It makes you very vulnerable to injury. That return of the venous lymph return reduces edema, removes lactate acid and battle debris. Again, it's aided with movement. A healthy vascular lymph system assures a healthy physiological state. So the bottom line was with this is if you have a job where you're moving a lot, you're a lot less likely to get these nutrient pathway disorders, commonly known as repetitive strain injuries or carpal tunnel, Decker veins in the thumb, all these, even the shoulder issues, the impingement in the shoulder. A lot of them come down to jobs where there's just not a lot of movement. People are just very still during the day, but they're doing high reps. Think of the secretary sitting and typing all day. People standing or sitting and doing an assembly line. So their arms and stuff are moving, but their heart rate is low or pretty constant. It's not high enough to get good flow. Ergonomic injuries, work-related pain are usually the result of a breakdown in the nutrient pathway system. High reps with static work. When I say static work, I mean a job where you're just not moving much, sets you up for a nutrient pathway disorder. I talked about the secretary example, lots of microtraumas, poor flow, low heart rate. You can't get rid of the edema. You can't heal your tissue. You're kind of vulnerable. Errors increase, productivity decreases, work fatigue. Fatigue leads to tissue damage, which in turn leads to NP disruption. It's just this cycle of pain and swelling and edema and a loss of productivity from the employer's perspective. Here's an example of a nutrient pathway disorder. We have a secretary on the right, and then we have this logger on the left. The logger, his job is obviously very dynamic. What I mean by dynamic, he's up and moving. He's going from tree to tree, hiking up the hills and down the mountain, whatever it is he's doing. He has a heart rate that's higher. He definitely has repetitive motions. It's not continuously repetitive motions. There's more breaks in it, I would, generally speaking. High heart rate, good pulmonary exchange. Let's compare this to the secretary who's sitting and working all day. Very static, a lot of repetitive motions. It's continuous. There really is no break to it. Average to static, kind of a constant heart rate, relatively low or constant pulmonary exchange. She's a prime candidate to get a repetitive strain injury. That's why so many office workers, static jobs, get so many repetitive strain injuries. It kind of goes with the territory. The human body basically is not meant to be still. The human body likes to move. If it's forced to be still and to do light repetitive tasks all day, it's going to break down. I can't tell you how many administrative assistants, secretaries, static workers are in pain. It's just like a national epidemic. A lot of it is because of this nutrient pathway disorder. And there's these lists of people that get all these disorders. You can just see that it's very static jobs. Truck drivers, stock clerks, telecommunications workers. I mean, they're sitting all day. Bus drivers, even police officers. Again, they're very static. They're sitting. And a lot of police officers, they have to sit and document, their stuff, kind of like an OT. So they're kind of vulnerable to that sort of stuff. What are these triggers? These are triggers that make it even worse. So we have a static job, a lot of reps, and you add this on top of that, and they're even higher risk for potential injury. They're working out of neutral. The wrists are flexed or deviated. It's cold. Why cold? Why does the cold weather make a difference with this? Decreases blood flow. You're decreasing blood flow. You're more vulnerable to the edema, the lack of the healing flow into the tissue. Repetition without adequate recovery. You're on that assembly line like these chicken factory workers, which is a horrendous job injury-wise. There's no break. You're just doing the task, repetitive task, over and over and over again. Very static. Stress. We talked about stress increases muscle tone. It impacts the flow. It restricts the flow. Again, stress is bad news on the job. Other triggers: lifestyle. Smoking impacts your blood flow. Obesity. Not very active. You go home and just binge on Netflix and game on the computer all the time. Poor awareness. We've talked about that with the Williams stuff. Postures, grips, excessive grips, pushing, pulling, contact stress, vibration. A lot of jobs, assembly line jobs, have contact stress, vibration, really sets you up for this. Your medical history: diabetes. Why diabetes? Impacts your circulation, your flow. Raynaud syndrome. That's a syndrome where they, again, have poor circulation in their hand. Lyme disease, there's certain Lyme disease, Bartonella, other ones that affect your blood. They go after your blood and they affect, again, your circulation. Pregnancy, a lot of pregnant women get carpal tunnel. Why? A lot of excessive edema in their body. They're very full of fluid. It sets them up for those repetitive strain injuries. Other kinds of tasks and jobs: assembly tasks, sorting, loading, stocking. Software programmers are very vulnerable to this. Telemarketers, data entry, stapling, stuffing envelopes, anything that's repetitive can lead to this. And it can be in your wrists and shoulders. It could even be in your feet. Any body part that's doing a repetitive task and you're static, you're setting yourself for potential injury. What can we do about it as OTs? That's the big thing, because everybody's got these kinds of things going on. There's a lot of things you can do about it that are just kind of changes in how they do things. Change the duration of exposure, the frequency of exposure, so you're not doing that one task all day long continuously. Address change by changing pace of the machines, alternating jobs, job share, pace. Think of the assembly line pace of the things coming down the assembly line that need to be done, how much work need to be done in a day. You could say you want to be productive and your boss wants to be productive, but if you're getting injured all the time and you're on workers' comp, you're losing big time money. So you may have to slow down the pace to keep people healthy. Alternating jobs, go from different jobs, so you're not just doing certain motions with your body all day long. Job sharing, so you're doing different kinds of jobs. The surface, help with the surface. Think of the power zone, so you're working with the power zone. Avoiding twisting, larger handles. Alternate different body parts. You're not just using one all the time. Stretching the opposite way. It's a simple but very effective thing. We talked about this a little bit. So you've earned internal rotation all day long, hunched over a laptop or a desk. How do we want to stretch them? They've got the protracted scap, forward head, forward shoulders, internally rotated. So all the stuff we've been learning about. Rows to bring them back. External rotation. So rows, external rotation. So they're going to do a stretch every 20 minutes, which they should do. Have them go the opposite way. Externally rotate, retract your scap. Core trunk support in the workstation. I'm going to talk about this, but these are the kinds of terms that you need to kind of get down for the final exam. Job rotation. What do I mean by job rotation? This guy, he's let's say stapling shingles in all day long. So he's using certain muscles all day long. Job rotation, we could get him off that job for a minute. We have him doing something else. Maybe just loading and bringing the shingles onto the roof, or driving, or doing anything versus just stapling shingles all day long. Work enlargement, kind of expanding what you're doing to get movement involved. Example I can think of, secretary, she sits all day and she has to use the photocopier. So it's close to her desk. So she just sits in a rolling desk and rolls over the photocopier, and photocopies. Have her walk to the photocopier down the hall. Have her walk, when she has to go to the bathroom, walk to a bathroom that's further away. That's those examples of work enlargement. We talked about slowing down the pace. Motion economy, they do huge studies on this when they're designing factories and stuff. It can be quite intense, but the layout of the job, especially when you're first starting a new job, reducing the reps, changing the layout. Quality control is huge. Example is, we talked about the poultry factory workers, sharp tools versus dull tools. So this guy is using an X-Acto knife to cut things. You want it sharp. Obviously, if it's dull, he's going to be really cranking on his thumbs and his wrists a lot more. Same with a knife. If you're cutting chickens all day long, you want that as sharp as possible. It's going to be less torque on your wrist. Mechanical aids, robotics. Think about the friction, reducing that friction. Anti-vibration gloves, grips on surfaces, handles, tool modification, avoiding stress points, vibration. Okay, so that's